Women need other women. I say I have to share my good and I have to share my bad sometimes with dear friends. And then sometimes I have to share almost the unspeakable things that only a few dear, dear trusted friends can hear what I'm struggling through.
Hi, this is Cherie Burton, and welcome to Women Seeking Wholeness, for women who long to feel, express, and be who they truly are, here and now, body and soul. It's always a deep dive discussion when I'm talking with my friend Sarah Hinze. She has so much depth to her character, her soul, and the work she does, which is a pioneer, truly pioneer in the field of pre-birth encounters, which is essentially a waiting soul who wishes to incarnate that makes some kind of an appearance or brings a message through dreams or other means to their waiting parents. If you feel like you have a child out there waiting, or you've had some interesting inclinations or intimations or impressions or experiences that let you perhaps believe that there is a child on the other side, or even if you're just super fascinated with the whole idea of a pre-existent state or different dimensions and ways that waiting souls try to come through, you'll really like our discussion. I actually share my adoption story of Eli and Emma, my two children who came 12 years after the last child I gave birth to, who came through announcing dreams. So this is the first time I've actually really shared this story in its fullness. All right, everybody. Today we're going to have a discussion with a dear friend and mentor and just overall person I greatly admire, Sarah Hinze. And today we're going to talk about mothers waiting for their children. We're just going to have a very frank and open dialogue about, first of all, how she and I connected and what her emphasis is in her professional work and her spiritual work and her healing work, and how I was able to align with that to bring my last two children into our home. Sarah is actually, I don't know how many years, decades worth of healing work with women in particular. And she has a life coaching practice. She's done hypnotherapy work and visualization to sort of get women to the core of how they can be whole and how they can heal. And she's very into just the whole empowerment around that and healing families by healing women. But what I was drawn to with her was her work on pre-birth encounters, or PBE. So we know about near-death experiences, NDEs, but there's this growing field of fascinating research and spirituality on waiting souls that are trying to come through to their waiting parents. And so you could call it pre-existence, you could call it another realm, you could call it another dimension. I mean, there are many faith traditions that speak of this, and we'll talk about a little bit. But she's written 7 books. And just to give you a little context, I waited for Eli and Emma for 7 years. I had 4 miscarriages trying to bring them into our home. And I was so convicted that they were coming and that I tried every means, including looking into surrogacy and all kinds of things. And when I was at one of my low points, and I have a theory that when we get to where we just can't see the forest for the trees and we've almost dashed all hope, that the universe, God, and angels will send us something in the form of a spiritual dangling carrot, if you will, that lets us know we're not crazy, that we're not thinking this, we're not making it up because we have all the emotion around it. And so I found Sarah's book. It's called We Lived in Heaven. What year did it come out, Sarah? What year was that published,
Oh, gee, probably 2005.
Okay. So I found it in 2007. And this is after I'd had some really, really rolling, I call them rolling spiritual experiences where my body would roll inside, just having this knowing. Well, I found Sarah's book, and I can't even tell you how I found it. It just found its way to me. This is even before Amazon. I found it and I absolutely devoured it, and later attached to her other work, and just so resonated with it because I come across a lot of women and men, but because I mostly, get deep into deep conversations with women, that they just like have this knowing that there's another child, or they have a dream or a knowing or an awareness around there might be another child. So I devoured We Lived in Heaven, and I remember one day, and this is a story I tell with some reverence, because it's very sacred to me, and it's not something I, have even really talked about publicly in this kind of a forum. But I had the best way I can describe it, a waking vision where I saw two souls dressed in white. And they were young adults, and the male was standing right behind the female. She had long blonde hair and blue eyes. The first distinguishing characteristic of both of them is that they had blue eyes. And he had like a sandy brownish hair. He was very large in stature, and she was just in front of him. And the feeling I got was like he was her protector, and that they were coming. And then it kind of closed up, and I was just reeling. So I actually contacted Sarah, because I was holding this conference for women. I was hosting a conference for women, and I had a variety of speakers on a number of topics. And I was really focusing in on the divine feminine, and I was bringing in lots of other authors and speakers. So I contacted Sarah and I said, I'm just fascinated with your work. Will you please come and speak? So she came and spoke at my conference, and everyone loved it. And then she and I connected again after that point, when I was going back into the abyss of like losing hope, because I kept having miscarriages. And Sarah, maybe that's where we could pick up where you come in, because here's the thing, ladies. Sometimes it takes another human being with their spiritual gifts to confirm. I mean, you can have lots of, swelling motions in your heart and soul, and have knowings or even visions or dreams. But sometimes those grand things happen, and then you're kind of going back into a wilderness because it's not manifesting. And so you wonder, do I not have enough faith? Am I reading too much into this? Am I having hallucinations? So I kind of went into that space. And so 2007, and I had written this poem called The Two Who Are Missing, which I may post in this, the body of this link. But anyway, so I reached out to Sarah, and I'm like, oh man, you've done all this work with, talking to all these waiting parents, and they've had all these things happen. And I'm just losing hope. I'm losing faith. And so, Sarah, maybe that's where we could pick up, because you had a really beautiful, affirming kind of second witness type of phenomenon with me.
Yes, it was the morning. We had a session scheduled on the phone, I think in the afternoon, perhaps even the evening. And so I was preparing myself that morning through prayer to visit with you. And I remember I was watching my toast in the toaster, standing in the kitchen, and I saw a little boy standing behind me. Now, we have this, our spirits have an ability to see through not only our eyes, but through our spirit. And so there was a little boy standing behind me, and he spoke to me. And I turned around when I felt and saw him there in my mind. And he was a little boy around 8 years old, brown hair, a very handsome little boy. And he was a little bit almost, we say slightly agitated. And he said to me, kind of in frustration, well, I've already told my mother that I won't come through her body. I will come in another way. Mm. And then he said it again. Mm. And he didn't say, I'll come through adoption. He said in another way. But that was the message, that he would not come through your body. I knew it was your son. And I pondered, how would I tell you? But, I just told you, the God of the universe sometimes uses me to deliver messages from those on the other side. And I always deliver them because it's important that people know what they need to know. And so, it was a beautiful exchange that we had together that evening when we talked.
Mm. That gives me chills, and I'm going to try to hold it together. He's 6 years old now, but it would be another 5 years before he came. And what's interesting about that, tell my mom I'll come in another way, is, and that he was trying to get through to me, is I was starting to have those feelings, but because in my vision, he and his little sister looked so much like my bio kids that I was convinced they were coming through me. And I was
Yeah.
so resolute in that. The
Yeah.
last miscarriage I had was at age 42. That's how long I tried to bring them. And there's a whole sacred story around that. But one I'll share, and Sarah, you tell me if this is something that you've seen with miscarriage with some of the interviews you've done. One of the miscarriages I had, which was the last one I had, because my doctor's like, you're done. You're not doing this anymore. I'm not doing another D&C for you. You're in your 40s, just whatever spiritual test you're trying, he was of my faith and had, knew sort of some of my convictions. And I was of the thing, well, the doctor doesn't know, but God knows, and he said, I refuse to let you continue to try to do this to your body. And he said, whatever spiritual test you're trying to pass, you've passed it, as far as I'm concerned. And I was like, oh. So when I was in the depth, because that miscarriage was so heinous that I actually went into labor and I delivered the sac, the embryonic sac, into the doctor's office toilet. And it was horrible. And I felt Eli come in and I felt him say, I'll come back. Thank you. I love you. I'll come back. And it was so strong that I went home and I had been told by another spiritual mentor that if you want to get out of your logic brain and if you want your soul to speak to you and the spirit to speak to you, that if you have a question, you answer it in your non-dominant hand, writing with your non-dominant hand. And I still have a copy of what I wrote. And I wrote a letter to Eli. And I was like, where are you? Why aren't you coming? And he answered. So that was in my right hand. And then in my left hand, he answered me. And he just basically told me, I'm coming, be patient. I love you. It was beautiful. I still have that. It looks like a kindergartner wrote it. And he's in kindergarten right now.
Oh, that's beautiful.
But is that something that we'll talk about announcing dreams in a minute, because I know that's a whole other realm. And definitely both Eli and Emma came through announcing dreams on top of the vision I had of them. But what has been your experience with miscarriage? Because I know there are so many women who've had miscarriages and they felt the soul of that being either during the pregnancy prior to the loss or right after or during. What are your insights on that?
Yes, I've written about what I've learned. What I learned, I had 3 miscarriages, and one of them came to me the night I was miscarrying, and he spoke to me and he said, Mother, it was never my intent to stay. I was near your heart. I was with you for a while, but I always knew that I would need to leave. And I received permission to leave early. I was going to be born and I would have died very young, but I was granted permission to leave you early, knowing that that would be less painful for you than if I was born and then passed.
Mm-hmm.
He told me his name. He told me that he would be with the family. He was a guardian angel. And some of my children have felt him there with them at different crisis times in their life. But he also told me he had a mission with me concerning my books about the unborn children, that he had a mission there on the other side with that mission, and he would be working with me throughout my life. And I had an experience once. My husband and I were working on a book. My husband has been so supportive and helpful as I needed a lot. I need a lot of help with anything I do. I bring in clusters of people, and it's worked out very well. As my husband had written this beautiful paragraph on some things in our book that I was trying to articulate, I said in my mind, I wonder what angel helped Brent write that. And my eyes were open, and I saw Daniel. This is the son I miscarried. He was standing behind my husband. He had his hands on my husband's shoulders. And when he realized I could see him, he turned his head and looked at me. And I saw the face of a spirit, a Holy Spirit. There were no lines on his face. There were no worry lines, or you know how as we age, you can kind of read someone's life through their face.
Mm-hmm.
His face was just pristine. And he spoke to me of his love for his dad. So that was beautiful. So I knew, but it still took me a while to heal, to let go of him, and knowing that I could not hold him in my arms. And then another miscarriage, I was told that that child would go to another family member because my body, like yours, just was not doing it. And God, in his wisdom, chose to send that child to another family member. And she's here, and she's wonderful, and she's beautiful. So God has his ways of sending these children. And for me, I would have I would have had 100 children. And I did have a lot of foster children in my home, and they didn't come through any agency, but God sent them through friends. But, those kind of experiences with miscarriage, I'm getting ready to publish a new book that I published a while ago, and then I ran out of copies. But it's a book that has a lot of miscarriage stories in it, and it's called Waiting in the Wings. It's, I've had so many people say, please republish that, because of all the things I did to heal from my miscarriage, that book was the main force that helped me to heal. And as you know, I'm all about helping women to heal.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's what you were saying about, being able to get a glimpse, I guess you could say, beyond the veil of Daniel. It's interesting because I don't know, I think these children, and I know this is in some of your books too, but some of these children who came in very interesting ways, maybe they were in another body. Like you said, your daughter became your granddaughter.
Mm-hmm.
I very much feel that I did carry both Eli and Emma and miscarry them.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know why. I just know that. Aside from, I felt Eli's presence so strongly with that last miscarriage. But I remember, so both Eli and Emma have grown up knowing who their birth moms are. They're 4 and 6 right now, so I've had limited depth around their stories, only to say that I really, really wanted them to come. And I really, really prayed and prayed and prayed and waited and waited and waited. And so there have been a couple of times when Eli was 3 or 4 so Jessica is his birth mom, and I was her life coach. And there's a whole story around, I had a dream about her that led to what I see now as an announcing dream, where she called me 3 days later and said she was pregnant. So I'm very close to her, and it's been a very open adoption, and I have a great relationship with her. And Eli knows exactly who she is and has been with her several times. She actually lived with us the last 5 months of her pregnancy, and I helped deliver Eli. She went into labor in our home. I drove her to the hospital, all of that. So I was very involved in Eli's pregnancy. But I remember, now that he knows who Jessica is, but when he was like 3 or 4, he was absolutely adamant that he came through my tummy. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was just like, that's what adoptive kids do, right? They're like, no, they want that fantasy that they're not adopted, they're biological. And at first I was like, oh, well, Eli, actually, and there was one time where I was correcting him and the Spirit stopped me and said, please validate him. He knows he was in your tummy.
Yes.
And he was around you, during that time. And so he doesn't say that anymore because he's a little older. But I've documented it because I thought I just had such a profound experience when I went to correct him, because I want to honor his adoption story. I want him to know what a sacrifice it was for his birth mother and how it broke her heart and all of these things at his age appropriate level. But I found myself discounting his childlike knowing. So has that ever happened with children? That I know in some of your books you've talked a little bit about children saying things that they remember, or like you said, I think you said you have another book coming out called Heaven's Memories, where people have remembrances of their premortal existence.
Yes, that book is actually out. It came out in, I think, 2015. No, 2015. It's only been out about 3 years.
Oh, I haven't read that one yet. I need to
memories. Yeah, I had written it 10 years earlier, but I held it until God said, okay, now you may publish it. But yes, your question, these children, these unborn children, these children in our wombs are incredibly intelligent and more than we can comprehend. And so, of course, he has a memory of being in you. And that suffices him to know that he was in you. And I think he holds that as validation, to him. And, reality in this life is one thing, but in the spiritual sense, the true reality may be that he was in you, and that's what really matters. The wonderful lady that provided his body for him, did a great gift, gave an incredible gift to him and to you. And I honor these women who give these gifts to others, and giving these children. So I think you did that. I think the Spirit really did speak to you, and you validated that, yes, you were inside me for a time. And then the other lady, he will understand that as he gets older too.
Yeah, and Emma's is different. So let's switch over to Announcing Dreams. So I know that you're part of a documentary that's being funded by a great benefactor. Thank goodness, because we all wanted it to keep going. Because I was interviewed for that, and I got to know Liliana, the videographer, quite well, and she's great. So
she is. She's wonderful.
Yeah, she's really talented. This whole phenomenon of, it's one thing, like a waking vision that I had. It wasn't a dream. It was just like something flashed and I saw, I was totally awake. But Eli, I was in Japan, and I had just been to a meeting with a group of Japanese healers. I was there for business, but we had a little side detour and I didn't know anything they were saying. I had an interpreter there. I was falling asleep. I was jet lagged. And I was still feeling really sad about these two children. So this was in 2011. And no, actually it was in 2000. It was February of 2012. And I had just lost my grandfather. I had actually been the one of the 30-some grandchildren he had who came to visit him, and was the one who had discovered he'd passed away. And he was a spiritual giant of a man. And so I had just lost him, and I had gone to Japan. And anyway, this Japanese healer says to my interpreter to tell me that there were 3 spirits standing behind me. And she said, there's a boy and a girl, basically like a young adult or a teenage boy and teenage girl. She said young boy and young girl. And there's an older man. And I knew exactly who they were. And I remember getting mad, not mad that my grandfather was there, which I now recognize he was sort of like bringing them in, right? But I was mad that God would keep messing with me, because at this time I was 43. And I thought, what? I closed this door and I don't know what to do. Why do they keep showing up? So I thought I was being deceived, actually. But I felt very peaceful too. So I had all this dissonance. So I go back to my hotel room that night and I have this amazing dream, like actual dream. And the dream was that I was in a park and there were people in white all around me. And I'm not saying it was literal. I know it was symbolic, but I knew the people, and there was a particular group around me, and we were just laughing and talking and just having a cordial conversation. And they kept looking down at towards the ground by my leg. And so I looked down, and there was this girl. She was smaller than me. She was probably, I don't know, 10 years old or something. And she had this long dark hair and blue eyes. And when we looked at each other, I was just enwrapped with the love that we shared as sisters. And when I say sisters, like we knew each other on a soul sister level. And I woke up. Mm-hmm. And I'm in this little tiny hotel room in Japan going, who was that? That's not the blonde girl that's not my waiting Abigail is what I called Emma at the time. That's not Abigail. Who's the girl with the dark hair and the blue eyes? And so I came back to Utah, and 3 days later, I'm in the grocery store and I get a text from Jessica. And she said, you're the first to know. I just found out I'm pregnant. I used to be her life coach. So she confided in me. Mm-hmm. And I, to this day, will never forget the thrill that shot through my body. I was standing at the produce section at Smith's, and it was like, that's Eli. She's carrying Eli. And she was the one in the dream. So it was almost like we had this agreement as spirits that we were going to have this shared experience of like sacrifice, tears, longing, love, and sharing the soul of this beautiful boy. Oh, and I didn't realize that was her in the dream until months later. But things progressed very quickly. She moved in with us. And then right before she moved in with us, she took Jeff and I to dinner and said she wanted us to adopt her baby. She didn't know if it was a boy or a girl, but I knew it was Eli. So when Eli was a year old, this is very interesting, Sarah. Tell me if this has ever happened to anybody. It was kind of like an announcing dream through another person instead of me this time. So when Eli came, I was like, oh my gosh, where's Abby? I used to call her Abby back then. Abigail, where is she? He's here. Like, what are the odds that, God's going to send another birth mom to our door? So at that point, I went out of my alignment in trust. And I went to the Utah Fertility Center. So at this time, I'm 44. And I was like, what can we do here? I know. And in my mind, I'm seeing this blonde girl and I'm like, okay. So they actually said, you are perfectly able to carry a child and your husband's sperm is healthy. So if you wanted, we could get a donor egg and you're very healthy. You could totally carry to term. But your eggs are not viable. And so I was like, great, give me the profiles. Took the profiles home. I'm finding all these blonde surrogates. I'm thinking, okay, maybe they're one of them, but it was like blam. It was like a spiritual door shut. And that was not the route for us. So fast forward so Eli's just barely a year old. I'm taking my daughter, Savannah. I might mention I have 3 other children, biological children. So Noah is at that time that Eli was born, Noah was 16, Savannah was 14, and Sawyer was almost 12. So that's how long. There's a 12-year gap between Sawyer and Eli. So this year is Eli's kindergarten year and Sawyer's senior year. But anyway, so my daughter, Savannah, at the time was like, gosh, I don't know how old she would have been, probably 14. We went to dinner. I was taking her to see Elizabeth Smart. We had just read Elizabeth Smart's book, and we were going out to dinner in preparation to go to that conference. And I got this Facebook message from a girl who said she'd had this dream. In real life, her friend was pregnant and didn't know how she was going to make it work. Birth father had taken off, or they'd broken up. And she wanted Jamie, the squirrel who had messaged me, to adopt her baby. So Jamie was going to try to do it. Jamie was only 22 and barely married and trying to make some ends meet, and had met with a lawyer, and things just weren't really feeling right or lining up for her. So she said to her mom, hey, I need some help here. What should you suggest? Well, Lori, her mom, was in my neighborhood. We were friends. And Lori said, why don't you go to my friend Cherie's blog? She just posted about how she adopted this little boy, Eli, this baby. And he's a year old now, and she might be a good resource for you. So that's the context. So I get this Facebook message from Jamie saying she'd had this dream. And in the dream, it was like she was there, but nobody knew or listened to her or saw her. And she was just kind of there in the hospital room. And she saw her friend Madison deliver a baby, and the nurse wrapped the baby in a pink blanket. And she said the nurse handed this baby over to a woman with long brown hair. Well, she said beautiful woman with long brown hair. And she goes, you don't know me, and I'm not a religious person. I don't even know how I feel about, God and spirituality, but I've had this dream 2 nights in a row. And when my mom told me to go to your blog, you are the woman that the nurse handed the baby in the pink blanket to. I need you to connect to my friend Madison. It's undeniable. And it was the same thing. I'm sitting in the restaurant and this thrill shot through me. And I started crying, and I knew it was her. I knew that's how we were going to get our now Emma. And it was very arduous. I could do a whole thing on how that played out, because it was not nearly as smooth sailing as Eli's adoption. We actually had to go through foster care and all kinds of crazy things, but I didn't get her till she was 4 months old. But, is that something that you've seen, like another person? And it's really dicey because like people can't get revelation for you. That's not a spiritual pattern. Like God told me you have to do this, right?
Right.
But the way that this came, as I look back, I'm like, I was trying so hard. It was like back to the Eli thing, right? I was trying so hard to figure out, like, should I go through an adoption agency this time? Should I find a surrogate? Should I be a surrogate? Should I, what should we do? Like I was missing the miracle that was going to happen. So this dream maybe had to come to someone else.
Sure.
I don't know, but I don't know.
I just think God works in mysterious ways. I have often thought, we think God will come through the front door, but sometimes he comes through the back door, and we have to be ready for that too. So he is a great God, and he works in majestic ways, but we have to be open how he's going to answer our prayers. And then as it comes, we need to let it flow. And that's what you did. You let it flow unto you, and you received the gifts. Mercifully, you did. You received them, and now they are your children.
And I have to say, like, I know there's a God because of Eli and Emma. Like there is absolutely no denying something bigger was at play.
Oh my.
It will always be they are the literal manifestations of the hand of God in my life. There's a lot of things that I can say, yeah, this or that, or I manifested, but I had no control over any of this other than to just let it play out.
Yeah.
But there's no denying that trusting the process was so difficult. But I was just a baby trying to figure out how God speaks to me, how he's working over here, how this looks hopeless. With the announcing dream, let's go back to that for a minute. So you have this documentary in the works and you're interviewing people. I know there's some really notable stories. I mean, I'm just thinking of that guy that was in the movie where he had an book where he had to he got wedged in the crevice of a rock or something, and he had to cut his own arm off.
Yeah.
What's that movie? James Franco was the character, 127 Hours or something like that.
Yes. And his book was, it was Aaron Ralston. His book is Between a Rock and a Hard Place.
Oh, wow.
It's a little story. Yeah, I would have liked that title for the movie myself. But, the whole story is about, that he was just compelled to cut off his arm so he could live. Sometimes people miss the reason why he did. And the reason why
they showed that in the movie very well at all.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that was a major detail, that they left out. But in his process of dying there, where he was, he couldn't get free. His arm was under a huge boulder. He had a vision of his unborn son. And he talks about how his spirit was almost taken to a room and he saw the floor and he saw himself with only one arm, but with this stub of an arm, how he picked up this little boy who was crawling on the floor and, put him on his shoulder and walked around with him. That was his unborn son. He knew it, he saw it, and the love he had for that child compelled him to do whatever it took to live, and that was to cut off his arm.
Wow. Yeah, it kind of goes back to what I was saying before, like when you lose all hope and your heart is in the right place, but you're just so distraught around what's the point. That's typically when an angel, whether it's a vision or earthly angel or an actual marked experience, can show up. And so I love that story. I wish they'd made that more of the focus in the movie.
Yeah.
So I want to speak to kind of what we brought up earlier, how, with women, there's this, we take it personally when some of our spiritual impressions or promptings or even visions aren't coming to pass. They're not manifesting. What would you say? I mean, I have my own thing I would say, but I'm really curious what you would say to a woman, a man. And I know a lot of times these children come to their dads, as evidenced by that story that we just shared about the man who got in a rock and a hard place. But like in your experience, because most of the people who are listening to this are moms or waiting moms, or maybe, I know some women will never be mothers, but maybe they have a connection to a particular soul who hasn't arrived yet. Maybe it's a grandchild. I had honestly chalked up Eli and Emma to becoming my grandchildren because I was 45 and a half by the time Emma came. By the time she was born, I was 45 and a half years old. So anyway, what would you say to a woman who has this in her heart? She's got a dream. Maybe she doesn't dare explore the dream because she doesn't know that if there's, maybe it's just emotion, maybe it's all in her head, maybe it's just wishful thinking. How would you encourage a woman to explore that? What would be your advice or resources or tools or something to bring that woman to a place where she can at least explore that to see if that is part of her destiny or path to receive?
Well, not to sound self-promoting at all, but I think the reason I was so impressed to write my books is that they seem to be a tool. So many people that read them have their personal mission, their personal path revealed to them, what they need to do with the children that are waiting to be born. And, I have heard hundreds and hundreds of stories. I heard some just recently that, are so magnificent. Every person has a very individual path to bring those children. And that has to be revealed to them. Like you were kind of overzealous in sacrificing your body, and you were warned, and God knew you had made such a sacrifice, and your heart yearned for them, and they came through this miraculous way. I think that people can look at various options to bring their children. Adoption is such an incredible tool to bring children, and so many stories like yours. These are their children. These are the children that needed to come. I think confiding in other women, women need other women. I say I have to share my good and I have to share my bad sometimes with dear friends. And then sometimes I have to share almost the unspeakable things that only a few dear, dear trusted friends can hear what I'm struggling through. So women need to be open to those dear friends that they can talk to, put these things up. I had a lady came to me when I was preparing to give a talk in Utah, and she said, I'm having this strange prompting. I wanted to ask you, I know I have another child, but I want to put a Facebook post up, and I want to say, if you're pregnant and need to adopt your child, or if you're pregnant, even considering an abortion, would you let me have your child?
Mm.
And she said, am I crazy? And I said, no, do it. Do it. She did it. And within 6 to 9 months, she found her child.
Mm.
It was just the very way she was impressed. And she now has this little girl that is her child. That's the promptings were coming. She had the courage and the faith.
Was that Carmel by any chance?
Yes, that was Carmel. That was Carmel.
You know what? I got to meet that birth mom when she was pregnant.
Oh.
Yeah, I had some beautiful discussion. But you're right. I remember reading that post going, that took some serious guts.
And her husband said, yes, honey, do it.
Well, they already have like 6 or 7 kids, right?
I know. They have a big, beautiful family, but, that ache in her heart. And there is a crisis now in heaven. There are children who are trying to come but can't get here. So being open to how they can come is an important part of our day, I think.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think it's just being open. And the older that I get, the more, I'm not advanced. I don't think I'm advanced enough along my path to get to the point now where I completely trust the process. There's always some anxiety about what am I missing or what am I not learning or whatever, but we really aren't in charge, are we? When it comes to a soul coming, we're not calling the shots. No. We don't have that much power. We're not the creator.
Right.
And for me, that was very, very difficult to accept because I'm the kind of person that if I want to do it, I'll find a way to get it done. And I think that was part of the gift. I don't want to say lesson. I don't think I was being tested and there was, God up there going, oh, you're not getting it. I think I needed to have the experience of all the loss and all it was almost like devotion to these children, devotion to God, following my heart. I was literally a preschooler at it spiritually, but I was trying. And the miracle happened. And I've had resistance to how long it took. Like I've been mad about it. I'm 50 years old and I have a kindergartner and a preschooler, but it'd be really nice to enter that, because Sawyer's graduating this year and I'm like, oh man, we'd be empty nesters almost. But at the same time,
look at all the fun you would miss, right? You're having so much fun with these little children.
They are so adorable. They really are. And they make huge messes all the time, but they remind me when I really stop and get past all the ways that, they're so loving and they've so settled into their experience here with, I don't know, Emma went through some trauma we still need to work through, but there's now this feeling of, okay, we don't have to go into spiritual fight or flight. We're together. We made it. And now it becomes, how do we love? How do we really learn to love? And how do we communicate? And Emma will have like a lifetime movie story to tell about her process, which I could make in a whole other episode. Eli's is more of a real depth between his birth mom and I and our shared. She's very spiritually gifted and very visionary. And I sort of have this theory, like Eli is a very particular, he's very structured and he's very serious and beautiful child. Those blue eyes that, I saw both he and Emma. But it's interesting. we laugh about it. So Jeff and I only make tall, thin children. Like all of our kids are really thin and tall. And Eli, his birth father, is a professional bodybuilder. He's probably, I don't know how much he weighs. He's probably 6'2", 3, something like that. And just he's not overweight. He's just extremely muscular. And that's actually how he met Jessica. And Jessica herself is a professional bodybuilder. And they have a different body that genetic, combination to create a different body. So I think Eli was just be like, hey, I don't want to be a Burton male body. I want this buff, like, and
Yeah.
one of the first things to notice that he's got a very high body mass index. He's not overweight, but his pediatricians just remark at his body mass. The size of his hands were the first thing that the nurses noticed. They're like, we've never seen hands this big. I mean, in his hands, and I'm not exaggerating, his palms are almost the size of mine, and he's 6 years old. So he's not he's not a monster. He's not huge, but he just has he's just got this fiery Italian, sort of like mix of like the physical prowess with the fire. He just wanted a different body. And
he needs it. He needs it for his work on the earth.
He does. I completely agree with that. So, well, we'll kind of wrap up with this, kind of bringing it full circle, because in my conversations with you over the years, I've been in your home. I've met your children. I love your Arizona, what you've got going over there. And I know that you and I have had some amazing conversations. You've been able to meet my mom and sisters, and we all love you.
I love your family too.
Oh, well, just the whole honoring the gifts of women. And one of the things I've always admired about you is, even though you have children and grandchildren, you have found a way to... How many children do you have, by the way?
9 children.
9 children. How many grandchildren do you have?
30.
Ah!
Is that amazing?
That is amazing.
I know.
I see how beautiful they are too. And you travel, you're in England and Scotland, and you're doing this research on your 24th great grandmother for your next book. I mean, you just are this frontiering soul, and you are so unabashed in how you express your gifts. And just the fact that Eli was able to come to you was such a gift to me, because you were open and you were thoughtful and you were fearless in your approach to matters of the divine. And I love that you just let that flow, and you sort of give those of us who are younger than you just sort of give us this collective permission to just be and do and go and interview people and make these connections between waiting souls and waiting parents. And no one's done the work that you have on pre-birth encounters. So I just want to honor you for that. But how did you get to that? I mean, I'm kind of there. Like, I don't care. I go over the world, and I love to write. I haven't gotten to where I can actually publish the book that's there, but I'm getting there. But what advice can you give us about just creating and letting that unabashed... You probably had to work at that a little bit. Nobody just comes with that. You have to fight for that.
Well, I know, I had experiences. I had 9 children. I had 9 children in the home, and you can imagine how busy. But then I started having these personal spiritual experiences where I knew I had a mission to write. And then I knew I had a mission to write about unborn souls. And I kept telling God, you've got the wrong girl. I'm soft-spoken, I'm shy. I kind of, stay in the back of the crowd. I don't seek any attention. And God was like, nope, I got the right girl. But I really tried. I was almost a Jonah trying, to jump in to get away from God speaking to me. But finally I submitted, knowing that my work would be, that there were things that I needed to teach and testify of, and that some may misunderstand me. But I wanted to honor God. I wanted to honor what God was calling me to do. And so I submitted and said, okay, I will do it. That was, 25 years ago. I am so thankful I submitted to God's plan for my life, because it has enriched me. It's enriched my children. I have these groups of people like you that I have met, and women I've met, throughout the books and speaking and everything, that I would have missed all that. My life would have not been so rich. So yes, because see, God plants within each of us a passion. a passion for something that we want to give to the world. In time, that passion will grow and start to speak to us, and we want to honor it and create it and do it, with a sense of reason. I had to temper myself and do it in a way that I could still, take care of my family. But God opened those doors and allowed me to do it. So I would say women need to listen to that voice within, that passion that's beating within you to do, to create, to give to the world, to give to your family, and see what can come of it. Because we are in a time where women, their voices, their talents, their gifts are needed and accepted in this world more than we have ever been accepted to contribute. So it's a great time to live and prepare to accept what God is giving you to create and to give to others.
I love that. And I love what you talked about. Just there's passions. Those passions we can no longer deny than we can our very breath. They're just there. And I mean, I always tell people, like, me stopping my work of learning about emotional healing, cracking the code on depression, empowering women, that kind of thing. If somebody told me you shouldn't do that because you're a mom, or you have young kids or whatever, that would be like telling an opera singer, like a professionally trained opera singer or somebody who had a natural gift like a songbird, don't sing anymore because you have kids,
Right.
It you have to do it. I actually have a phrase on my website in my about section about, I think it's by John Maxwell. He said, and I'm going to misquote this entirely, but he basically said, a calling is something you have to do. Like there's your mission and I think it's like your purpose is something you want to do, but your calling is something you have to do.
Yes.
And I would echo everything you said. And I would say, just explore any waiting for a child and knowing you have a child coming, that could be a passion to explore. That could be, don't diminish anything that rises up in your soul, because there's typically something opening up for you. And I just know that I've seen it in some, and it might not come in the form that you think it's going to come.
Yes, this is true. This is true.
You have your mind's eye vision of what that is. Don't hold to it too tightly.
Right.
Because you could block. And I see a lot of these people diving deep into like visualizing and mapping and vision boards. And I'm like, yeah. And also you need something that reminds you to have a caveat, like, or whatever is the highest for me. And I have found that when you add that sort of like spiritual disclaimer, it comes so powerfully in a form that, again, you cannot deny it's anything other than the hand of God. And it's just otherworldly. It comes to you in ways that you can't deny, that it's not you making it happen. You're just letting it happen. So
Absolutely.
I appreciate your time, Sarah. I appreciate your gifts and the model that you are to many women and those of us who are sort of in the trenches to figure out how to help women heal. So keep doing your work and know that there are women who see you and know you and honor what your contributions are. And I have a feeling you're not even remotely done yet.
Well, and I salute you too, Cherie. You have a gift of all 10,000 women that know you. We feel like we are your very best friend.
Oh,
because you reach out to us so individually. So we love you too. And we all have a work to do. And we need one another, and we're collective, and we unite to help one another to fulfill their missions too. That's part of our purpose.
Women learn through community. And like you had said, we need other women. We need to be able to speak what's unspeakable that we can't say at large, but that lives in us. And we need that validation and support. So I'm grateful you're part of my tribe.
Oh, me too, Cherie. Bless you. I sure do love you.
Thanks again to Sarah for sharing her wisdom with us. we can all take heart that our lives are in divine order, and that if we stay true to the flow of creativity and intuition and awareness inside of us, the souls that are meant to join us will reveal themselves, whether they are waiting children or angels on earth who need our healing gifts of love, service, and connection. Please check out Sarah's website, sarahhinze.com, for her books and to see her latest projects. Women need other women. The deep, unspeakable pain and anguish and self-doubt that we experience can be greatly ameliorated if we would connect to one another and share in our vulnerability. So thanks again to Sarah for reminding us of that.